Today's the day. I'm going to taste the kraut that we put up earlier this summer. I'm also going to taste the pickles we put up about 2 weeks ago. They're pickled peppers, just 2 jars is all we did this year, but I'm going to taste them, taste all those things and see if they're ready to put up so that I know that we can enjoy them this winter. In addition to them, I've got some other things. I've got little things here and there that's driving me crazy that I need to go ahead and put up. Some of them, well, I've got okra still coming in like crazy, so I've got some okra I need to put in the freezer today. And then back here in the back, I've got some of our dried beans. Now some of those, I'll tell you more about them in a minute, but some of them are ones that I need to just put up in the cabinet so then we can take them out on a cold winter's day and cook them up. Others are ones I need to shell out for seeds. They've been drying, let them dry actually on the vine for a long time. Then we've had them drying in the sunshine, drying on the porch, drying in my kitchen floor. So I'm ready to put those up and be done with them. But first, before I can do any of that, today is Corey and Katie's birthday. So we have some birthday things planned for later this afternoon. For supper, instead of me cooking supper like I usually would, Katie decided she wanted to go out to eat, so we're going to go out to eat. But we're going to come back here I asked them whatever kind of dessert they wanted I would make. They both wanted pumpkin roll, so I'm going to whip up the pumpkin rolls so that I can get those in the fridge and let them start chilling before I have to. There's a process to it. It's really easy dessert. It looks really fancy when you're finished, but it's really, really easy. But you do have to allow for it to chill in the refrigerator. Now I have a video about pumpkin rolls, so I'll link to that. But let me get that started, and then we'll taste the kraut and the peppers and get started on those beans. Okay, now I'm going to tackle some of the beans. This one is the preacher bean. This is a bean that Debbie from Bryson Farm Supply shared with us. I'm going to have to get me another bowl here. Shared with us this year, and we really, really liked it. Actually, it'd be easier for me to do it opposite here. Put my holes in there. We really liked it. Doesn't get to be a really big bean, but it made the best fresh green beans ever. And I think it's one that will continue to grow. A lot of the ones that she shared with us, and that's how we typically do things that we've never grown before. We just want to try them, you know. We have our tried and trues that we do every year, but then sometimes you try something and, you know, it's okay, but not as good as your tried and true. But then other times you try something and they're really prolific and you just fall in love with them. So this is one of those. It was so prolific. We only planted a handful of them, but it did so good, and it was a really pretty bean. And it seemed to come in early too. It seemed to be an early producer. So all the way around, it was, whoops, I went one in the floor. It was a really, really great bean. So you could certainly use these for dried beans if you wanted to use them and dry them. I'll show you. That's what they look like. Just an average size bean. You could dry them. We will use them mostly though, like I said, either for fresh green beans or to can, or even make leather breeches out of, but probably to can or to eat fresh is what we will do in the future. And all of these that I've got here, I'm not going to put any of these up to eat. I'm going to put them all up for seed. Me and Debbie both wondered, you know, you think about the name preacher bean. Was that because it was so prolific? Was that because it was you'd have beans to feed the preacher on Sunday? I don't know, but it's a bean. Debbie had told me it was one of her favorites, that she really loved it because it was so prolific and that it was a good one to can. So I found everything she said to be the same for us. Sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes if you're, different growing every little, even if you're like me and Debbie are in the same general area as far as Western North Carolina, but even here in Brasstown, what grows here at my house might not grow as good, down the road, on through the settlement of Brasstown, as Pap would say. Lots of different little microclimates. that affects things. As for me and Matt, where we live here, we're on the north side of the mountain, so we don't have as much sunshine as other places. But on this one, seems like it held true for us and for Debbie to be the same, to be very prolific and very tasty, and just a great all-around bean, green bean, pole bean. It's a climbing bean, so you have to have something for it to grow on, and then you also need to string them before you eat. Some people I know don't like that, but those are primarily the beans that we eat, and we eat a lot of beans. One or two of them's got some little brown places on them like that one, but I think that I'll just leave it. It's dried, it's not soft or anything. These are really, really dry, so I think it'll be just fine. If you look through there in the floor, I've dropped 2 beans, 3 beans. There went another one. There's one behind you I see over there. That one may have went in my bag. That last one is in the bag though. It's alright.
Cutting out something starting me today. Here on easy.
I'm making a pumpkin roll, could be that. Okay, my pumpkin roll's already done, so I've got those out while we were doing this. And yay, I've got rid of one bucket that's been sitting in my floor. So that's great. So these are the beans we ended up with. Now, before I forget what they actually are, I need to put them in a bag and go ahead and label them. I keep some bags that I just reuse in with my seeds. So this one had, well, I don't know, had something besides seeds in it. So I'm just going to mark that out and put preacher bean. This one wasn't used for seeds necessarily, but it's been used for something. That's great. Get those done. Now, I need that one. Go on to the next one. This is one that a subscriber shared with us, and it's called Grammy. He just called it Grammy bean. Actually, I may be wrong. Let's see what these are. Yeah, I'm totally wrong. I opened it up and I was like, that doesn't look like Grammy's bean at all, because it's a white bean. So this one is from Debbie too, and it's Cades Cove. A Cades Cove bean was the name of it, where it come from. And what it looks like is it looks like little tiny pinto beans. It's got those beautiful brown markings on it. So I'm betting that I'm sure you could eat this one as a green bean. All of them you could, but you could also dry beans. All of them can be dried. But this one really makes me think of the dried pinto soup beans, we call them. So I'm going to definitely save some of these to plant, but I'm really tempted to eat them too in a dried form. We did eat some of them just mixed in with the others. I think the preacher beans we kept separate, but the rest of them we just kind of mixed up all together. So it's a really pretty little bean now that you see it dried. And it's a smaller, even the, let me show you. Even you can see throwing that one, even the pods are small. They're smaller like than the ones we were just doing. Like that was one of the preacher beans, a little bit larger bean you can see. So it was a smaller bean hull too, along with being a smaller bean inside. It's so miraculous, and of course that don't just happen in Appalachia, but when you think about people handing down these bean seeds. So if this really did come from Cades Cove, I mean, and that's what, what Debbie said, where it come from. Her and her husband collected beans from different people. they would bring them in and say, hey, this is a bean that's been handed down in my family and I don't want it to get gone, so I'm giving it to you to, to share and to make sure that it stays around. Anyway, but if you think about this coming from Cades Cove, it's been many, many, many years since people actually lived and farmed in Cades Cove, because of course today it's part of the park and you only go there to visit. So there's no kind of families living there producing food to feed their family. So that's really an amazing thing when you think about the connections of seeds. And as I said, that happens all over the world, not just here. But the ones that have been handed down through the mountains of Appalachia are really near and dear to my heart, as you might imagine. Okay, I'm making progress. I got rid of one more bucket of my Cades Cove, and now I'm going on to my last bucket. Well, almost last. And this is the Grammy bean, what I thought a moment ago that I had. This is the Grammy bean. I also got my pumpkin rolls into the fridge, so that's good. So they're chilling so that I can take them back out and add the filling in a little while. I made two so that Corey could take one home with her, and then Katie could have hers here. Of course, we'll eat on all of them, but that way they'd have one to take home with them. So this is a bean that's really prolific too, and as I said, a subscriber shared it with us, I think year before last, so this is the second year that we've grown it. There went one of my seeds. So one question that people ask a lot is, me and Matt, our garden areas are so small that we literally have to plant stuff on top of each other. Well, when you worry about saving seeds, if you're somebody that saves seeds, you have to worry about cross-pollination. Now that happens very easily with tomatoes and peppers and probably other things too. And I'm sure that it can happen with beans, but we've never had that happen. That's not to say this year it won't be the year that it happens. But with beans, we've had really good luck. Now, I don't know, you probably know more about it than I do, so you can tell me if that's ever happened to you or if you've ever heard of that happening to someone. But for us, in all the years we've grew green beans, we've not had that happen. I have definitely had it happen with peppers and with tomatoes. It's funny with tomatoes, it seems like Tommytoes, little tomatoes, they don't cross-pollinate as easily as the bigger ones. But even those, example, it's kind of an in-between, I guess, but smaller tomato, we grew for years, cream and sausage, and I kept the seeds for it. And it's a tomato that's about that big, cylinder kind of shape. And year after year after year, it was fine. And then suddenly one year, all the ones I planted, I'd saved the seeds all those years, but that year when I saved seeds and replanted them, it wasn't that. It was like a kind of more of a tomato-shaped tomato, kind of pinky red, totally different color. The cream and sausage is yellow, like a pale, pale yellow. So it can happen. And with peppers, it happens. And sometimes with peppers, if you had one hot pepper growing by bell peppers or something like that, then the heat will also affect your seeds. I mean, the seeds you save from the sweet peppers may all of a sudden be hot peppers next year. So it definitely can happen, but we've never had it happen yet with the beans. We might. It just seems like some things are easier to cross-pollinate. And I didn't know that for a long time, and especially when I first started growing heirlooms. And it was a rude awakening when I found out that tomatoes that I grew side by side, I really couldn't. I mean, you can try it, and it's not that you won't get something edible, you will, but it just probably won't be true to what you had. But you can definitely still do it and still eat it. Anyway, when I found that out, I was like, what? I didn't know that. But as I said, it's still, sometimes when volunteers come up, there'll be something odd, but almost always they're actually edible, even if they look different or look funny. And I think that's how some people have actually started a new variety of tomatoes or whatever it is, by accidentally cross-pollinating. So this Grammy bean is interesting. It's as prolific as the preacher bean, but you can see it's different. It's much longer, skinnier, still a smallish white bean, but the outside of how the pod grows is just totally different. This is a, like I said, a long skinny bean, but is really prolific. Okay, one more down. Got that one done. So this one will be the Grammy. If I can spell. Should have put the date on those others, but I didn't. Okay, got those. Now, while I was doing those, there was one bean somehow we'd mixed up. It's obvious to tell what it was, though. It's the little Cades Cove soup bean. Put those in there. Maybe while I'm at it, I will go ahead and put a date on there, and then my other one. Just so. Oh no. Okay. Now, I do have more beans, but it's a big dish pan full, so I'm gonna wait and do that one night when I'm sitting with the family. But I did want to show you what it is. It's the Yount's bean. So this is the Yount's bean. It's a bush bean, and Matt and I have grown it for many years thanks to the generosity of his friend, Brian Lambert. It comes from the Junaluska section of Cherokee County. So we love it. But what's happened is we've almost let our seed get away from us. So this year, all the Yount's beans we grew, we didn't eat any of them. We were just going to save them for seed. So that was why, like I said, there's a dish pan full of those. So I'm going to quit on this part. I think Matt's been out cutting some wood, but I think he's done. So I'm going to straighten up, and then I'm going to see if he wants to taste the kraut and the peppers with me. All right, before Matt goes back, I'm gonna make him help me taste here. We'll start with the peppers. These are like the ones we made last year. So I got these little tongs, but I don't even think you need a tong. Let's get you one. Maybe one of those. I can get a hold of it. You want the whole thing, or you want me to get something and cut it? Get a plate and then cut it. Cut it and see. We just loved them last year, but our peppers didn't do as good this year. I think I can just use a fork, maybe. Maybe not. There you go. Just as good as last year. Those are so easy too.
Man, that's good.
That's good. After we made them last year, I started craving them, so I would just like eat them. Every time I thought about them, I wanted to eat one. They go really good with things too, whether it's a sandwich or a meal, or soup beans or whatever. But
gosh, yeah.
Another bite.
I got parasol gas all on me.
Well, I don't think it tastes good with parasol gas.
Well, I didn't know what I was eating. I just
So those are good. I only got 2 jars though this year. I might have some more peppers out there. I need to look and see. And while Matt's eating the rest of his pepper, so this is one of the jars of kraut that we made like Granny. I'll link to both these videos so you can go back to see it. Actually, to all 3, I'll link to this one too. So this is different than how Matt and I usually do ours. We've got a video on how we usually do kraut. I'll link to it. But what happens with this one, so this has been sitting on our porch ever since we made it, and I brought all the jars in here. So they leaked out some. Well, because of that, there's mold and stuff around the edge here, and the glass is kind of dirty, but I'll wash them before I put them up. So let's see though. There's nothing on the inside. It looks good. Let's see, Matt. It's really bubbly. You can hear the bubbles, so that's a good sign for sure. Here's you a spoon. Let me get some.
That's good.
Wangy.
That's the way I like it.
It's good. Really good. Still really crunchy.
That's real good.
You can even feel it tingling on your, like the bubbles. Very, very good. Very
There's a
good.
pot of soup beans going to add that to
That's
it.
what I was going to say.
And
All we
peppers,
need
too.
some soup beans and some cornbread, and we'd have a feast right here.
Gosh, yeah.
Man, that's good. We'll have to just leave this one open probably and continue to eat on it.
Yeah.
That's good, but I will clean up the outside of the jar. That's just part of the nature of doing it like this, is that you have to clean it up. Now these, you can tell how good they are because they're pretty much gone. This is the dill pickle that I learned how to make from Justin Metcalf. So we've already been eating on them. Let's see, there's so we'll just get what we do usually, because we do them whole, is we just get one out and then slice off of it onto a little plate just to make it easier to eat. What'd you do with your knife you have?
I didn't ever get one.
Okay. So we already know that we like this one, but there you go. We've done been eating it. And you can hear how crunchy.
Gosh, it was good. Best pickles ever.
Best dill pickle I've ever had. I love them.
Win County Fair, that right there.
Yeah. Love them. I made way more jars last year. I did 4 jars, I think, because it was the first time I'd ever made them and I didn't know if I'd like them or not. But even though I made way more jars, I'm not sure that they'll...
We need about 40.
I think we've eaten 2 jars already. And it's not even... This is our second jar we've opened.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're really good.
Gosh, yeah.
Yeah, so... Yep. Okay, well, is that you deem it all a success?
Yeah, that's all really, really good.
Okay.
I'm starving to death
I
now.
know, now we need to eat some dinner. It's about dinner time. But I got a few more things to do, and I think Matt's got some more cutting to do outside.
Now that juice would be.
That'd be good. You gonna drink some?
Oh, yeah. My goodness.
Yeah.
That's good for what ails you there, ain't it?
Yeah. It'd be really good if you had an upset stomach or something. I want that little piece of garlic down in there. Me and Matt might as well leave that out now that we've drunk out of it.
Yeah.
Finish it off today. But the rest of it I'm going to clean up. And so a lot of people ask me, you can be dismissed if you want to.
Oh,
if you want to go. I mean, if you're a...
Thanks, my love.
Yeah. Well, I know you're busy and you don't want to hear me talk probably. But a lot of people ask me, so if you make kraut the way Granny did, then what do you do with it? Well, this is, I mean, when you're ready to store it, like when you deem it ready, now that we've deemed this ready. So there's all kinds of different information for you to research and find out about. The main thing to know is the FDA canon people will tell you don't do this. It's very, very dangerous. So this is like a rebel that I just learned that term in the last year, but rebel canning. This is the way Granny's always done it. So what we do is we do nothing. I'm going to clean up the outside of the jar and get the mold off and get the stickiness off where it overflowed when it was working, when it was making. And then I'm going to put it on my shelves in the basement until we're ready to eat it. That's what Granny does. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, you can heat it in a water bath. You can water bath it for, I would guess, 10 to 15 minutes, something like that, and then store it. You know, make sure it's sealed if you're worried about it being sealed, and put it on your shelf. Or you could do this, maybe just do a jar or 2. If you don't, I think I ended up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I just ended up with 7. So I'm not going to put 7 jars in my refrigerator. It's too full. But if you want to just make a jar or 2, then you could probably just put them in your refrigerator. You could just make 1 jar. You could just make a pint. You could just make it a little bit at a time. And a lot of people do that. The people that maybe they really believe in the fermentation aspect of being good for their gut health, and they just do a little at a time, keep it on their counter, then they eat it, then they have another jar going, then they eat it. You know, they just are continuously eating it, so they don't have to worry about long-term storage. So next on my list is I'm going to tackle the okra, and then I'm going to show you a few more beans, and then I think maybe my day of of organizing and getting this stuff all put up will be done, except those Yance beans. But I'm going to wait on that to when I'm sitting down and I can maybe be watching something with Matt or talking with the family or something, to have something just where I don't have to think about what I'm doing and tackle it then, because it's a pretty big pan full, a dish pan full. I'm almost finished with all the chores I needed to do this morning. I wanted to talk about, lastly, I want to show you, I need to do something with these, is the things that we've dried that we are going to eat. So you can see here this beautiful, beautiful pea. This was also from Debbie, the Holstein pea. Now, what we ended up with was just that much. That's all. We only planted, though, about 5 seeds, I think. So that's not bad when you think about 5 seeds, how it multiplied. I definitely want to save some of them for seed next year, but I'm so excited to try them. So I'm thinking, even if I just cook a handful, I'm going to have to do that. And that way we can taste them, but then I also want some for next year. So I think while I'm making myself go through stuff and put it up, I'm going to get me a little bag, put some in it for seed, and then I'll know that I can cook the rest of these. I thought I was through, and I put up my bags and my different things that I was using. So it was awful big to use for just a little bit. Let's see if I can just reuse this one. I had Chambers Creek pumpkins in it before. Let's just mark that out and put Holstein. I don't know, I'm going to put a good handful, I guess. I want some to eat, but I want some to plant. Surely that's enough to plant. I hope. This will be a process to, if we like them, to actually build up those seeds. So those, and then I'm going to put the lid on these so I can put them in the cabinet and know they're there to eat. Now another thing, Matt and I have never really dried. We've dried crowder peas. We've not really grown peas very much, so that's where we're kind of at the beginning stage of learning. Now for the past 2 years or 3 years, we've grew like the Mississippi pink eye, which we love. It's like a bush pea. And then also like the red zipper peas. Those are really good. They're kind of the same. I'm not sure I can really tell much difference between them. But we just eat them fresh because we're just beginning to grow them. This is the first year that we've been getting to eat them fresh with the Mississippi pink eyes. We grew a whole bed of them, one of our raised beds on the bank this year. And then also we had some red hull peas that climb. The Mississippi pink eye is a bush and the other ones climb in one of our beds. So we ended up just saving a little bit at a time with this many seeds. And these are all dried. So I'm going to put these in the cabinet, and then this winter we can use them when we want to eat peas. We can eat these. I wish that we could end up with enough that we would have such a bounty that we could freeze them. You know, we would have enough, or can them. Canning would be wonderful. But this year, this is all that we ended up with extra. Now that's better than we usually do. So we're going in the right direction. Last year and the year before, we just grew enough to eat, and that was all. We didn't put up any. We didn't freeze any. We didn't do anything. So at least we're going in the right direction. So we will have this many to eat on this winter. So these are ready to put in the cabinet too. Along with the peas, trying the peas for the first time to actually produce enough to grow enough to produce enough to actually put up for winter eating. The beans, we always grew beans. That's the majority of what we grow, and we always just can them. We make some leather britches, but the majority of the ones we can. We loved canned green beans. That's just easy way to do it, easy way to cook them, and we really love them. We eat green beans about every week. So we've never tried to dry the actual bean, other than leather britches. Now that's different. I have a video about that I can link to. That's a different category. But we've never tried to actually dry the bean part. Like think of soup beans. Like those, I was excited about the Cades Cove ones. They're tiny, but they look a lot like soup beans. We've never tried that. So this year we planted, the majority of our beans we planted was rattlesnake beans for the first time. Typically the most we grow is greasy beans. This year Matt wanted to be done with them, and he wanted to try growing our big beds, our big long rows of rattlesnake beans, and we did, and it was really a huge success. I'm glad that he talked me into doing that, because they just produce so many beans, and we like them. So, you know, it's kind of like Matt said, why are we fighting the greasy beans that don't produce as much when we could just plant the rattlesnake beans that we like just as good? Anyway, so we had plenty of beans to eat fresh, plenty of beans to can. We canned a lot of green beans this summer like we always do. And then the very last picking on the rattlesnake beans, we decided we would just leave them. We just leave them there, and they were kind of petering out, so there wasn't as many as had been growing all summer, but we would just leave them, and we'd let them dry. And we would try for the first time ever to actually harvest dried beans and see how that did. So that's what this is. This is those beans. We have a few more still drying out on the deck, but this is the majority of them that we've already shelled out. And they do look very, very similar to soup beans. That's what they look like. So we're so excited to try these for the first time. Try drying our own beans and actually, you know, get to enjoy them this winter. And we still have a few green ones out on the deck. They're drying, like I said, but altogether I think we will end up with maybe about 2.5 pounds, something like that. At least 2 pounds. This is definitely 2 pounds. It might actually be closer to 2.5. Anyway, very exciting for me and Matt. First time in all the years that we've gardened that we've actually tried to dry beans like this. So we're super excited about it. And I'm super excited to go ahead and put them in the pantry and be done with them, and get one of my big bowls that I use a lot, get it back where I've had these drying. So I'm just going to try putting them. We'll see see if they fit. I think they will in here. I see there's one or two, I know what these are, white ones that are not the dried ones. And those, I know exactly what they are. They are the, at the end of one of the rows up there, we grew what was called the case knife. That was again from Debbie. And they were okay, but they wasn't our favorite. They got really, really big, just really big. And then the hull got really tough. Anyway, but there was one or two of those I know in here, and that's what that is. Just where they got mixed in. Well, I was hoping I had enough to fill it all the way up. Maybe with the ones outside, I will. But either way, still really exciting, even if it didn't fill it all the way up. It's going to be really rewarding this winter to pull these out when I'm going to make a pot of soup beans for supper one day, and to actually know that Matt and I grew them instead of just buying them at the grocery store. So that's going to be really nice. I hope you've enjoyed spending time with me this morning in the kitchen as I kind of go through and organize. Basically is what I feel like I've been doing, getting some of that stuff out of my kitchen floor. There's still other things I need to do. They've got all my winter squash are still on the porch. There's still winter squash to harvest. We're still getting okra out of the garden, and a few of the fall things that we planted. So things are still chugging along, but it feels really good to know that my kraut can be put up, that the peppers turned out good, the kraut turned out good, and that all these dried beans that I've had hanging around are ready to be put in the pantry so that I can pull them out on a cold winter day. And it's rewarding to do all that, thinking about feeding your family, but it's also really rewarding when I think about the seeds, you know, saving the seeds for next year. Especially meaningful. That's always fun, and me and Matt always like to do that. We enjoy that. But it's especially meaningful this year knowing that Debbie shared these with me. These are really old varieties from my area, Western North Carolina, the Southern Mountains of Appalachia. It's really a good feeling to know that I'm going to help perpetuate that. I'm going to help those seeds keep going. Now, hopefully, what will happen is eventually I might grow enough that I can share with people. You know, maybe I could send some to one of the seed companies and say, here, you should try this. I'm not there yet. I barely got enough for us to use, but hopefully I can do that. And I really admire Debbie and her husband and other people like that that really hold on to those seeds and cherish them and then share them with others so that they can keep going, because those old varieties I think are so much better. They're just so good, and especially those like I said, come from my area. I know those are tried and true ones that grew in my climate, in my in my general area, that people cared enough to pass down through the generations in the mountains of Appalachia. As always, I hope you'll drop back by often to help me celebrate Appalachia.